So I've been doing SEO Q&A live streams as well as running an SEO Facebook group for about 5 or 6 years now, and the amount of questions that we've been getting regarding indexing is skyrocketing over the past year or two. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the main reasons why you're probably not getting indexed on Google, as well as the best ways to get indexed and get ranking as fast as possible. So definitely watch until the end because there's a lot of stuff here. Honestly, indexing isn't something that I've had issues with at all. And hopefully by the end of the video, you'll have a better understanding of how to deal with this issue yourself. All right, let's get into it. So I'm Chris Gegis, and you might know me from my link building agency over at sirlinksalot.co or our other Facebook group or YouTube channel. Or maybe you've seen me around on some other podcasts or at some SEO conferences, but you can go to my website for more information on me. So very quickly, a few things for beginners. If your content or pages are indexed on Google, it means that Google knows about the content and it's also willing to show it to people when they're searching for things on Google. If one of your pages or your whole website is not indexed on Google, it could either mean that Google knows about it and doesn't think it's good enough to index for whatever reason. We'll go over this stuff. Or maybe they just don't know about it yet. Also, indexing is a little bit different from ranking. Yes, you need to be indexed first in order to rank for any keyword. However, your page could be indexed, but for whatever keyword you're targeting, that page might be on page 10 and no one's going to see it anyways, right? But indexing comes first before ranking. And one of the reasons that indexing is getting harder on Google is because the internet is starting to grow kind of at an exponential rate, right? Part of that is due to things like ChatGPT. People can pump out AI content, create thousands and thousands of pages very quickly, so it just increases the amount of pages that Google needs to look at. But also there's just more people doing business on the internet. The internet is part of our daily lives. As time goes on, the internet's going to get more and more crowded. Everyone's going to have a website. Everyone's websites are going to be larger than they are now. Looks like they're estimating this over 1 billion websites right now on the internet, which is pretty crazy, right? And Google needs to keep track of all of these websites and determine which ones are good, which ones they actually want to show to searchers, every page on those websites, right? It's a ton of work for them to do, or their bots rather. So as the amount of work that Google needs to do to index websites grows, they have to get more selective because it costs them a lot of money to do this. And yeah, I would just expect things to get harder as time moves forward. Before we dive into the most common things that I see people having problems with regarding indexing, there's a few quick, easy ways that you can do to check if a page is actually indexed or not. The first thing you can do is type site : and then followed by the domain or the exact page URL that you're trying to check if it's indexed or not. So you can see from my small website, chrisgegis.com, I've only got 3 pages currently indexed. But let's say I wanted to check to just see if this page is indexed, my recommended tools page. We'll do site : and then paste that in. And you can see it showing up one result here. This page is indexed. However, it's worth noting that this does not work all of the time. Probably say it works like 95 to 98% of the time, but every now and then you'll see you type this in and it'll say the page is not indexed, and then you can go and check other ways, which I'll show you in a second, and it actually will be indexed. So this isn't always 100% correct. Next up, you could come over to Google Search Console and check the indexing report and just look around in here and see if there's any pages that are not being indexed. And they'll even give you reasons down here of why pages aren't indexed to kind of try to point you in the right direction. However, also note that this is not always right, but it can be a good place to start checking. And the last thing we can do is check some of the exact text on the page. So I'll just copy this text from the page right here, and we're going to do a Google search for it in quotation marks. Go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see my page is coming up as indexed there. All right, now that we've got the beginner stuff out of the way, like what is indexing, why it's important, and how to check for it real quick, we'll get into a bunch of the issues that are causing indexing problems. And some of these will be really easy to fix, and I'll kind of cover that as we're going. But then after I get through all of these common problems, I'm going to show you the biggest ways that are the best ways to make sure everything gets indexed on your website very easily. So definitely be sure to watch till the end. All right, so here are the most common problems causing indexing issues. Number 1, you have a new site or a very fresh site. So if you come over to chrisgegis, my website only has a DR of 8, 0 keywords, 0 traffic, 6 referring domains. I haven't done any link building at all to this site. Right now, the site is literally just like a business card, right? It tells you who I am, have my newsletter, and gives you a place to work with me and my recommended tools. So if your website is like this, things can take a long time to start getting indexed. Google doesn't really know about your site yet. Their bots are not crawling your site very often, so it could really take a long time to get those bots over to your website and crawling it, and we'll cover this in just a minute as well. Next up, the content or the page that you've published on your website might be very recent as well. So let's say over here on chrisgegis.com, the Work With Me page, let's say that I just posted this page like yesterday. Because this is a new page and because my domain is very weak right now, it could take Google a long time to find it as well. And actually, if you look at my site and see the pages that are indexed, I've only got 3 pages that are indexed. That page is actually not indexed. Does it really matter to me? No, because I'm not trying to rank this page for anything. But it was posted later than the other 3 pages, and I would expect that one to eventually get indexed as well, as Google slowly gets over there and crawls it and realizes that it's there and it should be put in its index. And again, we're going to cover how to get around this stuff and actually get these things indexed, but we're going to wait until the next section to do that. We've got to get through all this stuff first. By the way, guys, go ahead and give the video a like and give my channel a sub if you're enjoying the content. Next up, you might not have enough backlinks going to your domain or the page. Let's back over to Ahrefs again. You see my domain only has 6 referring domains because I haven't built any links to it and I really don't do anything on the website at all. But it's actually this that's causing the troubles with indexing rather than the site being new. If the website had a ton of referring domains, a high DR, that creates a ton of links going to your website. And these are links that Google bots can crawl over to your website. So the more things you have pointing to your website on the internet, the more Google bots you're going to have crawling your website and help getting things indexed, right? So not enough backlinks is another huge one. And normally when you talk about not enough backlinks, we're talking about to the domain overall, not to the individual page. However, backlinks to the page can definitely help it index. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth here in a minute. Next up, the page or your website overall might just not have enough internal links going around, spreading link juice, letting bots crawl your entire website. Or you might even have orphan pages, which are pages that have 0 internal links from other pages on your website. So back on my website, if this page had no menu link and had no other links going to it, how would bots even get to it? So you can see on this example article over here on sterlingsalot.co, we've got internal links throughout our articles going to whatever other pages we're linking to. It's usually just pages that make sense. Internal links help add context for Google. They help to understand what your website is about. And they also help bots crawl around everywhere. If a page has a bunch of internal links going to it, for example, if this link exchanges article right here, which we're linking to in this article, has got a bunch of internal links from a bunch of other articles, that would show Google that this page is very important to us. You can check things like this with a tool like Screaming Frog or a plugin like Link Whisper, but I don't use it much anymore these days. And yeah, I'll talk about that more in a minute as well. Next up, we have quality content, or rather your content is not quality content. If you aren't already familiar with it, I'd come over here to Google's documentation and check out their helpful content guidelines. This will help put you in a really good direction as far as understanding what Google thinks is quality content. I've also got a ton of videos on my channel about this stuff. I'll go over some things to check with quality content here in just a minute. However, I will say that this is probably one of the major issues that I'm seeing right now whenever we audit people's websites and try to figure out what's going on, why things aren't indexed, especially now that everyone is using ChatGPT or whatever AI content tools to pump out a ton of content all at one time. If you're not using quality prompting and you're not doing any editing and improving the content at all to add a bit of a human touch to it, then it's probably not that good. This is a lot harder problem to fix, but we'll talk about that more in just a minute. Next up, we have user signals, and user signals kind of goes together with quality content, but quality content we're looking at from Google's perspective, kind of from an SEO perspective, whether Google thinks your content is good or not. And then user signals are if other people that are actually reading your articles or reading your pages on your website think they are good or not. So if I come over to Google and I typed in toxic backlinks and I clicked on this first article here on SEMrush and I was like, hey, this article really sucks. I don't like it. I'm going to click the back button and now I'm going to go look at number 2 and read this one. Google really hates this, right? This is called pogo sticking. It clearly shows Google that you were not happy with the content that you saw. You went back to search results and you tried to find a better example of content that you want to read. Now, if your website accumulates a bunch of bad user signals, if they're landing on your AI content spam website or whatever you've created, then people just hate it. Then Google could de-index a bunch of your website. You could get an HCU classifier or something like that. And you could have a really rough time trying to get your content to index or rank or anything really. Next up, we have thin content. So when you look at this toxic backlinks article, you can see this content is definitely not thin. And what I mean by that is it covers the topic fully. It's quite a long article here. Keep in mind, your article doesn't necessarily have to be super long, but yeah, just keep it in range with kind of what everyone else who's talking about that topic is trying to get. But if I had written this article here on toxic backlinks and I'd only written like 200 or 500 words or something, Google might see it as not covering the topic fully. It's also worth noting though that Google might not index the content just because it's short, but also because it might not provide like any value to the readers. So on my Work With Me page, does this really provide any value to the readers? Probably not, but it's also not really trying to rank for a keyword. Not a really good example, but I think you kind of understand what I'm trying to say here. Next up, duplicate content on and off your website. So if you've got pages on your website that are the exact same thing, Google's not going to want to index all of them. As well as, if you've completely stolen this content from someone else and you put it on your website and it's the exact same thing, then they're probably not going to want to index that either. You could use a tool like originality.ai to check if you've got duplicate content around. Or you could even just take portions of your page and search for it on Google in quotes and see if there's anything else out there that's exactly the same thing. I searched for this one and it's actually pretty interesting because we've got this site formationpbn.com, which looks like they are kind of scraping our website, just posting a bunch of duplicate content related to our website. And that is definitely a little bit annoying, but it's not really giving us any problems at the moment. Something else to be aware of is if your pages are like near duplicate. So if like your entire page is really like the same thing, like maybe you have a footer that's like 10 sections long and then the top of your page is just like 200 words of unique content. Because it's really not that much of a difference here, then Google might see these as duplicates as well. Next up, we have your robots.txt file. I'm not going to go into this one super in depth, but basically you just need to make sure that your website is not blocking bots from crawling it and indexing it. If they are, your website's just not going to get crawled and indexed, right? So yeah, definitely make sure there's nothing weird in that. Next up, we need to make sure that your SEO plugins are not causing anything to have the no index tag on it. Most people either just use Yoast or Rank Math, but basically you want to come into the settings on the page, click the advanced tab if you're in Rank Math, and just look and make sure that it says index here and it's not checked on no index or any of this other stuff. Next up, you need to make sure you've not clicked the button in WordPress that says, please don't crawl my website and index it. So if you go into settings and then reading, you'll see this option right here, which says search engine visibility, discourage search engines from indexing this site. Definitely do not click this guy. Next up, your website might be over crawl budget. So for example, we see this a lot with like e-com sites. They just kind of balloon out and have thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. Google just doesn't want to crawl that. They don't want to crawl a bunch of pages, especially if they don't see them as important or adding any kind of unique value. So especially if you have a very large site, you want to make sure that you're limiting the amount of pages that you're allowing Google to index. You're making their job easier. I had this cool newsletter from Kevin Indeg over here, and the entire article talked about how websites with a lot more pages end up having worse rankings than websites with fewer pages. Anyway, moral of the story is make sure your website just doesn't get crazy big, right? If your website isn't that big, like if you're only 100 pages, 200 pages, even 500 pages, anything less than 1,000 pages, you probably don't need to worry too much. However, if you do have a bunch of stuff that doesn't need to be indexed or just doesn't need to be there in general, it might be better to take it off your site or set it to no index. Next up, poor site structure or navigation. And this kind of ties in with internal linking, because internal links are how Google kind of crawls your website and determines its site structure in a lot of cases. But of course, make sure you've got good menus and you've got a bunch of stuff in your menus like your blog and whatever other pages link out to a bunch of pages just to make sure that Google can crawl your website very easily. Make sure you've got footers as well, some stuff in your footers. Of course, having things like a blog page that link out to a bunch of your other categories and blog articles could help as well. Making sure your URL structure is clean and you don't have like, slash categories, slash blog posting, slash whatever, and just keep doing all these slashes. Try to keep them pretty short if possible. Next up, you might have a manual penalty or an algorithmic penalty. So if your rankings end up looking something like this after an update, there's a good chance that you got hit with either a manual penalty or an algorithmic penalty. If it's manual, you can check in Google Search Console, of course. If it's algorithmic, it's not going to tell you anywhere. You're just going to have to try to figure it out on your own, or the help of someone that knows what they're doing to try to audit your website and figure it out. But in a lot of these cases, when you get hit and your traffic starts going straight down, Google will actually de-index a lot of pages on your website or maybe even your entire domain overall. I know, for example, Google got pissed off at Julian Goldie over here, and now you can see his website only has 10 index pages on it. Before that, I believe it was hundreds of index pages. It's kind of interesting that they've allowed some of the pages to remain indexed, but not all the other ones. But anyway, it's a good example of what's going on here. And this is, of course, what it looks like in Ahrefs. So definitely want to check and make sure you don't have a manual action or an algorithmic penalty. Next up, we have other technical SEO stuff. Maybe your website has 400 errors, like 404 errors, 500 errors, canonicals, missing sitemap. I'm not going to cover all of these things, but you could do a crawl in Screaming Frog. This tool is great for this kind of stuff. Just make sure you don't have a ton of technical SEO issues going on. And the one thing that I will cover real quick is your site doesn't have a sitemap. If your site doesn't have a sitemap, you should definitely have one. It's really easy to do. You just need a plugin like Rank Math or Yoast, and it'll create a sitemap for you automatically. So for example, we go to my website and we type in sitemap index.xml here at the end of the URL. We can see my sitemap here, which is created by Yoast. And click here to see page sitemap. It's got all my pages on my website. This just tells Google all the pages, all the posts on your website, and just really spoon feeds them all the information. And they're saying, hey, this is what's on our website. Next up, there might be a current algorithm update happening. If you come over to Google Search Status Dashboard and you see some algorithm update is rolling out and you notice that a bunch of your pages are not indexed at the time, you're just going to have to sit and wait for a while, wait for everything to finish updating, wait for the dust to settle. So it could just be a temporary thing. You don't really know. Next up, we have mobile first indexing. So if you go over to your website and it looks absolutely horrible on mobile, or for some reason, maybe it's loading really slow on mobile, then Google might decide to just not index all of your website or a lot of pages on your website. So you can use a tool like Google's PageSpeed Insights to measure your page speed. And I believe this gives you some information about mobile as well. So you can see from my website here, chrisgegis.com, my performance on mobile is really bad. It's actually 38 in the red, which is actually something I would worry about if I saw and want to fix. I don't really care because I'm not trying to rank the website for anything, but I'll eventually start doing some blog posts and stuff on the website. And when I do that, I'll definitely want to get on a CDN, probably add a page speed plugin. Those two things alone pretty much fix all the things. And I guess I covered two things at once, but also page speed, Core Web Vitals, same thing. Just go over to PageSpeed Insights and check things out every year. All right, so these are all of the major problems that you'll see causing indexing issues. Some of them definitely more important than others. Some of them a lot easier to fix than others. Let's get into the big fixes now. So here are the main ways that you can improve indexing. I'm not going to cover a bunch of the easy stuff like robots.txt, setting up your SEO plugin correctly, clicking that option in WordPress, having a sitemap, fixing your technical SEO issues. We're not going to cover this stuff because normally these are not the issues. People normally can fix these things very easily, or they're just not the problem in the first place. These are usually the big fixes right here. Number one, and everyone hates this, but the number one way to get things indexing good on your website is to build backlink authority. So back over here to chrisgegis.com, I have 6 referring domains, a DR of 8. And whenever I post a new article on this website, I can pretty much expect things are not going to get indexed for a while. It might take a considerable amount of time. It might even be weeks before Google sees the article and decides to index it, no matter how good it is. And that's because my referring domains, my DR is just very low. There's not enough backlinks pointing to my website to get bots crawling my website. Google does not see my website as important, and they're just having a hard time finding it and crawling it, right? On the other hand, over here at SirLinksAlot.co, we've got a DR of 60 and almost 1,000 referring domains. And on this website, whenever we post an article, it will index pretty much immediately. And it's usually ranking on page 1 or 2, depending on the competition of the keyword, within 24 hours or 1 week as well. So this is one of the main benefits of really getting this extreme backlink authority, right? I've got a ton of videos on my channel about building backlinks and especially building quality backlinks that are actually going to help you rankings and help you get indexed on Google and stuff like that. But the gist of it is that you want to do your foundational backlinks, and then the most of your budget is going to be spent on stuff like guest posts or niche edits, aka link insertions. And if you have a higher budget, you could do stuff like digital PR. Again, I can't go into this in depth in this video, but a ton more info on all of that in my channel here. Link building is an investment. Link building takes time. Link building takes money, yes. However, it's so insanely important for ranking on Google that it's just an investment that you're going to have to make at some point if you're really serious about doing SEO. And this is probably the number one problem that I see when people ask why the website's not getting indexed. Next up, build backlinks to the page, but I'm saying this is not necessary. So for this first example, when you're building backlink authority of your entire domain, it doesn't have to be to the specific page that you're trying to get indexed. So for example, for this toxic backlinks page that we have on our website, this page indexed very quickly within 24 hours and started ranking immediately. But we didn't build any backlinks to it. And it's because our entire domain has a bunch of backlinks. All of the other pages and our homepage have a ton of backlinks that'll help this one as well. Your entire domain raises up, not just the individual page that you're building backlinks to. However, if you're having trouble with just one of your pages getting indexed on your website, then building backlinks to that page can help that page specifically get indexed. When you're using this tactic, you'll see a lot of people using kind of like cheaper links, and that can work. However, you have to be careful as well, because you don't want to just start spamming your website with a bunch of cheap, low quality links just because you want a single page to get indexed, right? So in most cases, I don't really like spamming just one page with backlinks to try to get it indexed. I would rather try to build the backlink authority of my entire domain overall, or look at some of these other issues as well. But I really can't say that it doesn't work. Actually, it works very well, right? If you have a page that's not getting indexed and you start building backlinks from it, you can get it indexed pretty dang quickly, especially if the links are good. It's just not the avenue that I want to take, because if there's other problems that are causing it from getting indexed, I want to fix those problems rather than having this kind of a short-term solution here. Next up, quality internal links and site structure. Again, one of the major problems that we're seeing. Like we talked about before, all of our articles have internal links going to a bunch of other articles on our website. We don't have any orphan pages on our website. Everything is getting linked to and crawled because we're having these internal links and good menus and stuff like that everywhere, all over our website, right? So definitely make sure that your individual page that you're trying to get indexed has a bunch of good internal links coming from it. Your homepage, of course, is the most powerful page on your website to get internal links from. So if we go to the SirLinksAlot homepage here and we scroll down to our recent blog posts, all of these blog posts are getting links from our homepage. So these pages are definitely getting crawled very quickly, right? Because the homepage is the most powerful page on your website. It's the first page that bots land on your website. It has the most backlinks going to it. It's just the most powerful page on your site. So if you're having trouble with a page getting indexed, you definitely try adding a link from your homepage to that page. Next up, you can do internal links from pages on your website that get high amounts of traffic. Of course, you could just come over to Ahrefs and then click top pages. These will be your pages in order, ranked by how much traffic they're getting, at least what Ahrefs thinks. So you could do the same thing in Google Search Console. So the homepage is the best. High traffic pages is number 2. Pages with a lot of backlinks is number 3. Of course, if you have a page on your website, so for example, if this toxic backlinks article has a bunch of backlinks going to it, then all of these internal links that we're linking to on our website will be very powerful internal links, right? Because they're getting a lot of link juice flowing through them. And all of these pages would be getting indexed a lot easier. And lastly, I wanted to talk about plugins here for a second. The plugin that most people recommend for internal linking is Link Whisper. And I used to use Link Whisper myself. However, I do not use it at all anymore. But if you really don't know what you're doing with SEO, or if you have a huge website and you don't really understand it yet, or you have like an AI content spam website, then Link Whisper could really be a good thing because, you just need to get internal links flowing through your website, right? But you just have to understand that it does have limitations. It is using AI. And for whatever reason, this is very hard for AI to do. I have not seen an automated solution for internal linking that does a very good job. So when you have a website that you actually really care about and that you know the content on very well, it's always, always, always better to do the internal linking yourself. But if that's not the case, you could definitely check Link Whisperer out. Next up, if you're having trouble getting a page index, you could try using social media to help you out. And I'm including YouTube as part of social media as well. I say here that X is my favorite, and then I would say LinkedIn and Reddit are my second favorites. And you could even use free parasites like medium.com if you wanted to. When I was ranking for this keyword here, sexiest SEO in the world, you can see me right there, number 1. You can see my LinkedIn post on it here, a post on Medium here as well, number 2. Here's a YouTube video for it. And I'd posted it on X as well, but I'm not seeing it anymore for whatever reason. But anyway, by dropping links to your pages that you're trying to get indexed on these platforms, you can definitely help get them indexed faster. This doesn't really solve your problem though, right? It's kind of a short-term fix. However, I do just like doing it anyways, right? Whenever I have some new piece of content, some content that I really care about, it's always good to try to drive traffic to it from other sources like social media or YouTube. Next up, you could try using an indexing service, which again, I do not ever do because just like this other example that I was telling you here, even though I do this one, it's not really for indexing reasons. I feel like using indexing services is just putting like a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, right? By fixing out what the actual problem is, by building backlink authority, building backlinks to the page, quality internal linking and site structure. And we'll get to this one down here as well in a minute. But by doing all of this stuff, you're actually fixing the real problem. And this will help you with your SEO and ranking overall, rather than just trying to do a short-term fix with these indexing services, right? There's also been some news with the Google indexing API where, basically people have been abusing it for a long time to try to get things indexed because everyone's doing AI content spam now. So Google, of course, is trying to fight back, and they're making big changes to how you're able to use their API, which is basically what all the indexing tools are based off of. So anyway, you could look into this if you're looking for a short-term solution. However, it's not something I recommend. Next up, improving your content quality, which will also improve your user engagement metrics as well. If you subscribe to my channel, you've probably seen me bring up this AI content editing SOP a million times by now. Yes, I'll be giving it away at some point in the future, but really this is not just for AI content. This is for editing any content that any writer does for you to make sure that it's up to par, that it's good quality content, and not just some generic crap that Google will see as low quality and not want to index. So here's all your introduction stuff, key takeaways, removing any AI kind of BS, fact check, brand check, completing any unfinished ideas and sections, adding in EAT. This is one of the major ones here. You're adding your firsthand experience and expertise into the articles. You're adding for information gain, which is making sure you have unique content in your article, something different that all the other articles don't have. Adding any additional sections that weren't there already, outbound authority links, of course, having unique quality images, but really EAT and information gain and making sure you're covering the topic fully here. Of course, you could use a tool like Surfer SEO or like Neuron Writer or whatever else to make sure that you're covering that topic fully. More information on my site here on the recommended tools page for all the tools that I'm using to do SEO. So again, build backlink authority, quality internal linking, quality site structure, and improving your content. These are really the main things. And by figuring out how to do this stuff correctly, not only are you going to be indexing better, but you're going to be ranking better. So I really highly suggest figuring this stuff out because as an SEO, you really need to, and it'll suit you much better in the long term rather than, doing these short-term fixes. And lastly, let's say that you did everything right, but maybe you have low backlink authority or maybe your site's kind of fresh. You might need to just sit and wait. If you don't have a lot of backlink authority, but you're doing quality SEO, you have good internal linking, you have quality content, you have a good site structure and navigation, and you're building backlinks, but you don't have that many and it's going to take a long time to really build them up, then really you're just going to need to sit and wait. You could try these two things. You could try driving traffic and signals from social media as well as indexing services. I would say actually this would be kind of a decent thing to do in the beginning if you're really trying to get these indexed very quickly. However, it's really not going to do much for your rankings. But as far as getting Google to start crawling your site more, they could definitely help in the beginning. So yeah, in some cases, you just sit and wait and you keep chugging along. So like for my site here, chrisgegis.com, once I actually start the blog up and start posting content on this website, I'm really going to be checking and trying to get these things indexed. I'm literally going to just post them and just keep doing else whatever, I have to do in my day. Because I know I'm doing SEO correctly. I know once I start building backlink authority, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be indexed. I don't need to try to force it to. All right, guys, that's it for now. We covered a ton of stuff here. We covered all of these common problems as well as my top tips for getting things indexed on Google. So hopefully that's helpful to someone out there. Because we're getting asked this question a ton. And remember, I think this is just going to get harder over time as the internet continues to grow, and especially now with AI content spam. So I highly recommend learning how to do everything correctly rather than trying these short-term fixes. Like always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and give it a like and give my channel a sub, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.